Today is day 10 on cannabis oil, and I think that has given me more than enough time to stop being cautiously optimistic and start believing and confirming with myself the first miracle I've seen in my 21 years of life. Sometimes I'm not sure if everyone quite understands my joy, but I know many do, and I hope to steer many other parents like myself in the direction of the same joy I am so lucky to now know. When I say my daughter is having hundreds of seizures a day, I mean it, quite literally. I say hundreds, but maybe it was more. If you can have a seizure every minute, including while you're sleeping, and there's 60 minutes in an hour and 24 hours in a day, how many seizures is that? That's how many seizures a day my daughter was having. I'm talking 24/7. Her last EEG, which lasted a week, confirmed that the right posterior, accounting for 15 to 20% of her total brain mass, was firing constantly. I was a mother who was realizing I couldn't help my daughter. It would take drastic measures from a neurosurgeon in Texas to perform a lesionectomy and a corpus callositomy to split and then remove that 15 to 20% of her brain. A procedure that at best would leave my daughter with 5 to 10% of her brain. The surgery had an 80% success rate, the other 20% still experiencing life-threatening seizures and no quality of life. And after being prompted to sign the papers for the surgery, the surgeon, of course, wanted to clarify the risk of death with an extreme surgery. 50% she would not make it out of the operating room alive, and that was a risk I was not willing to take. After getting over the trauma of facing such a big decision, I knew I owed it to Nova to try cannabis oil. She received cannabis for 4 days, and my questions about cannabis were answered the same day, the same hour after her first cannabis dose. It was really working. I can't help but to refer to it as a miracle. I gave it to her for 4 days until I had enough proof. 4 days with no seizures. Shortly after, I canceled all her therapies, upcoming doctor's appointments, the surgery, threw my belongings away, and headed north. Nova's first dose of oil in Colorado was Saturday, June 7th, 2014. Upon arriving from Mark and Regina's, I found Nova in a familiar, semi-comatose state in my bed. Sunken in eyes, shallow breathing, completely limp, yet jerking and shaking. Something I have seen and something she has endured for far too long. Anything from countless, pestering, debilitating clusters, all hours of her day, her entire life, to violent and deadly, relentless grand mouse, threatening to take my daughter's life at any moment. Living in the hospital for weeks, almost months at a time, afraid that I would soon be one of the parents that begins receiving her mail there. My life, and my daughter's life, had become a living nightmare. At least in the midst of even the worst nightmare, you can wake up. But there was no waking up from this. When I pulled up on the syringe, a strange new black oil was ready to go into Nova's G-tube. Everything had boiled down to this. I went against the advice of many, but went with my gut feeling, and I carried the support of many with me. The oil easily slid through the feeding tube and into her tummy. 20 minutes afterward, I met my 3-year-old for the first time in my life. It's been 10 days since then. In those 10 days, we have seen one seizure that lasted 10 minutes, and after a big dose of oil, stopped. The past week and a half has been filled with more love, joy, and happiness than I have ever known. I feel my daughter, my family, and myself have a new lease on life. The best joy I have ever known has been the past 10 days with my child. It's a precious gift. If there's 60 minutes in an hour and 24 hours in a day, how many potential minutes have passed that were potential risk for seizures? 14,400 minutes that prior to starting oil would have been spent laying next to Nova in bed, watching her wither away, wondering how long she had left on this earth. She has only spent 10 minutes of those 14,000 minutes having a seizure since starting her oil. This is more than we could have expected, and my daughter is alive and well at this very moment, and as far as I'm concerned, every moment on, thanks to cannabis oil. If I had any doubts before, they have diminished. Cannabis oil saved my daughter's life. If you have a loved one who is suffering, take it from this 21-year-old, once unseasoned but completely self-taught mother, whose eyes are now open. Just a regular person from regular old Texas that never in a million years would have dreamt I'd be writing this today. Don't wait. You've got to go for it, but the view from the top is oh so sweet and worth it a million times over. A 99% reduction in seizures. Hearing my child laugh harder than she ever has in her life. Feeling her arms around my neck while she goos and gaws at me. Seeing her attempt to sit and stand on her own, and seeing a feature of her when I look into her eyes. If that's anecdotal evidence, I'll take it. Mom completely for Canabis, Day 10.